So welcome. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but this is super exciting for me because I get to meet two ladies that I've had the privilege of interacting with over the course of 2021. I'd like to give you a very warm, well, I'd like to welcome, and I'd like you to show in that welcome, for Kate Scott and Vicky Godfrey from DNApal. Hello, ladies. First of all, tell everyone where you are. Kate, where are you?
Hi, I'm in sunny South Africa. It really is sunny today.
Brilliant. And Vicky, where are you?
Well, I'm in normal sunny Ibiza, but actually it's really, really raining hard right now.
Well, that's good to hear because I'm in good old Blighty and it's really overcast, but we're told it's meant to be quite nice today. So this is wonderful, isn't it? The power of Zoom and the fact that actually we get an opportunity to talk about what it is that you ladies do. Now, the clue's in the title, DNApal. So Vicky and Kate are the founders of a company that are massively involved in genetic testing to optimize people's health. And it's how you can understand your own personal blueprint and actually make things better in your life, you know, take more control. So Kate and Vicky, how on earth did you two get together? How did DNApal start and where did it start?
You want to take that one, Vicky?
I'll take that one. You can take the harder ones. So Kate and I met at the College of Naturopathic Medicine. We sat together. I bugged her and probably annoyed her with all the questions I asked her, but somehow we remained friends. And then we'd done a few genetic testing, or I had, and I was still overwhelmed by the results. And I just phoned up Kate. I was stood in Tesco's and I literally went, I just want to know what to eat for my genetics to make me the healthiest I can be. And DNApal popped into my head and I called Kate literally in Tesco's and said, hi, I know you've been working really hard in genetics. I've got this idea. Are you up for it? And she just went, yes. And then I'll let Kate take over now, what she thought.
Yeah, so when we qualified, we'd only had one lecture on nutrigenomics in our final year. And I remember I had a total light bulb moment during that lecture. And I just felt, I knew that was something that I was going to do, that I was going to be drawn into. And I ended up going to do my own 23andMe test. And at the time, you could only do it through the States. The lab was only in the US. So it took weeks and weeks and weeks to get the results back. And when they came back, I found, well, first of all, you get all the ancestry information, which is interesting. But I was obviously really looking for the health stuff. And when it came back, it was kind of both overwhelming and underwhelming. So overwhelming just because of the mass of information that is thrown at you, but then underwhelming in, okay, well,
what do I actually do?
Yeah. So that made me go out to start really researching what actual research there was behind the different genetic markers that are available that you can test for. So how many of those have actually been properly researched? How does that affect people's health, lives, impact their lifestyles and things like that? And what can we do about it? So I went on to really specialize in that, started my first company, which was kind of direct to practitioner PDF report styles, which Amantha, you'll be familiar with. So, we get, and they're lovely. There's lots of great information in there. And now 10 years on, actually the research comes out almost daily. It's become a huge, huge area of research, nutrigenomics. It's an area of research that falls under epigenetics, which is actually more about how your diet and lifestyle and everything happening in your environment interacts with your genetics and vice versa. But the one thing that I always felt was missing in the static style reporting was the being able to layer in the person's right now. So looking at their actual lifestyle, because even though your DNA doesn't change or stays static throughout your lifetime, what you're doing in your environment, or what you're doing in your lifestyle, the way you're eating, or even just your life stage, different when you're pregnant from when you might be menopausal. So particularly for women, that changes. And so the advice will change. So to take it into a digital space, when Vicky called me and said, I've got this idea to turn this into an app that people can have in their pockets. So the two things actually, that the one was being able to layer in all that great kind of personal information. The other thing was, you get an emailed PDF, and at best you might print that out and it goes into a drawer and gathers dust for the rest of its life. So to make that something that can remain relevant for people, where it's literally at their fingertips to be able to go, oh yes, what was that again? I don't remember what my result was.
Yeah, especially yeah, like say if you hit a stressful moment, because life has stress, there's no getting rid of very stressful moments, it's just how you deal with it. But being able to go back in and go, oh, okay, so that's now hit my life. Let's see how my roadmap of how my body works. Same with like fertility and then menopause, knowing that you're genetically estrogen dominant or your estrogen detox pathways don't work so well. How fab is that to know in menopause?
Well, honestly, I can't tell you. So that's what I mean. We're gonna join the dots a little bit more for people, because we have a great grounding of science between the three of us. But for most people, we know what DNA is, or we think we know what DNA is, but I think we probably need to break that down a little bit for people so they understand. But the reason I got in touch was exactly that, Vicky. I'd just like to say, not all DNA testing is the same, and it is really important that you find credible organizations such as DNApal, because it's expensive. It can be expensive, and you need to check out the quality of what you're going to get as a result of that service. I've had previous testing with other organizations. It hasn't been that great, for that very reason, that you pay a lot of money for a report, but you don't get a lot of continuity in terms of support. What's the report telling you? What's it not telling you? What should you do? What shouldn't you do? That's the really important bit. And with DNApal, these ladies are so enthusiastic and generous with their time. I've been through that process, which is why I wanted to get them on. And it was exactly that, Vicky. I knew my consultants were telling me, because I'm perimenopausal, take more estrogen, take more estrogen. I didn't feel that great taking more estrogen. And when I got my report and I sat down with Kate, actually, what came out of that, which I'm happy to share, is that actually, yes, I'm prone to being estrogen dominant. My enzymes don't work that well at clearing. So I'm holding on to estrogen, which isn't great for cancer risks and things like that. So it's about having that empowerment, I think, that actually, yes, if you stood in Tesco's, yes, if you're with your consultant, you have that knowledge and that insight about yourself, not statistically, but about yourself, that you can then impart. So shall we make it a bit easier for people? What is DNA? When we talk about nutrigenetics, nutrigenomics, what is DNA at its grassroots? What is it?
Okay, that's your one.
So a little aside, I'm sure Amantha's heard this before, but we always joke that I'm DNA and Vicky's pal. On a boring science level, and I mean, I don't find science boring, obviously, but it can be dry for people. In every single cell in your body, except for your red blood cells, which don't contain a nucleus, you have a cell nucleus, and inside there are 23 pairs of chromosomes. So it's the same in every single cell. And on those chromosomes, it's almost like a little filing cabinet. So on those chromosomes are layers and layers of your genes. And those genes essentially code or give the instructions to code different proteins that basically make you. So moving away from the science, and a nice analogy that I like to use is it's a little bit like your own personal recipe book. So we all have the same recipe book to make a human being, right? So our recipes are the same, and the recipes equate to the gene that makes eye color or the gene that codes for a particular hormone. We all have that recipe, but within the recipe, there are little changes in those recipes that might make somebody make a lot more of something or not enough of something within that recipe. And that essentially, when we do DNA testing, we're looking for something called single nucleotide polymorphisms, which are little changes to your DNA code that essentially just change your recipe slightly. Now, sometimes those changes actually do nothing to the recipe. Your cake might come out completely the same and fine. Some of them actually enhance your recipe, so they make you stronger. So those are certain types of evolutionary changes where we've adapted to the environment and become kind of stronger or more able to deal with certain environmental inputs. A really cool example of that I usually give is lactose intolerance. So it's actually normal for human beings to be lactose intolerant after they've weaned. So obviously you want to be able to break down lactose when you're breastfeeding. After that, it's really not natural to be drinking milk anymore. So naturally, that ability to break down lactase or produce lactase that breaks down lactose falls away. Now, in certain populations that have had dairy in their diets for many centuries or many decades, they have evolved to be able to produce that enzyme. So their recipe essentially has changed so that they can break down lactose into adulthood. Okay. So that's a way where a recipe can change to make you stronger. Sometimes those can change and they don't necessarily make you weaker, but they do change the biochemistry, and depending on what's going on with the whole person, because we try to look at people as whole people, what's going on with everything in diet, lifestyle, mental health, everything. It might mean that they need more support in certain areas.
And that is so important, isn't it? Because like when you are stood in Tesco's, Vicky, going, oh my God, what on earth can I eat? It is a whole person, because, is your bowel aggravated because you're gluten intolerant? Is your skin itching and, breaking out? It's joining those dots in a way that you don't necessarily get the joint upness when you're sat with a doctor.
Yeah.
But it's the same like shoulder pain or back pain. The amount of people that you see with, oh, my shoulder hurts, so they think just to take a tablet or an ibuprofen or something. But if we're looking at the overall body, the ibuprofen might reduce the inflammation, but it will also not be very good for the gut lining within the stomach. So then you might create further problems down the line. And the amount of people I say, but it means your body's inflamed, and they look at me like, what do you mean I've got inflammation? And you're like, well, the inflammation, pain is the body's way to signal that area is inflamed. Therefore, you need to reduce these things out of your diet, or you can take some anti-inflammatory natural things, turmeric, fish oils, and so on, and blah, blah, blah. And they look at you and it's never even correlated with them. They're some of the beautiful things that I see with the knowledge, because one of the genes we look at is their inflammation gene, and whether they're prone to be a more inflammatory person, I suppose is the right word.
So one of the things that was really fascinating for me, I mean, I coach people, and like you say, I mean, we've talked offline several times, haven't we, about how what happens in here directly correlates to what happens there. And actually, because we've got that gut brain axis, actually what happens in our gut directly affects, because it travels back the other way, directly affects here. So some of the things, when I'm with my clients, that I say to people, actually, you know what, you seem to have a number of things here, and it can be like men's health issues, women's health issues, thyroid problems, sleep, stress, which is a massive one, as we all know, and the impacts on your immune system. Now, these are all conversations that you have on a weekly basis with your clients. And so if we're going to do a few more of these bite-sized conversations between us, but what are the biggest issues that you see, for us as a population on the planet right now, and the sorts of things you're seeing? Which out of those big headings that I just gave would you say are the biggest issues?
What are the ones you see the most, Vicky?
I think the hormones is a big one at various age stages. This is because of the plastics in our environment, bad toxic body products. There's so much in our environment that's throwing our hormones out, whether you're estrogen naturally dominant or not. We've got layers and layers. And sleep is also a big one that I see a lot in clinic, where people are really struggling. And like I think you mentioned earlier offline, stress can also trigger that. So it tends to encompass with it, and histamine issues as well, where they're creating insomnia problems, or things like that I see a lot. So I think they're my three big ones. And vitamin D, low mood and low vitamin D, and then genetically you look at them and their vitamin D receptors don't absorb so well.
And it is that, isn't it? I mean, again, with my own personal situation, I was presenting with multiple issues, as I would call them, you know, permanently postnasal drip, you know, antihistamines weren't touching it. I was having to nasal spray. I've got the whole, you know, fluctuation of periods during the perimenopause, you know, some days, you know, so heavy I can't leave the house, other days, you know, nothing for 6 months. You know, those things in isolation are quite stressful, but then culminating that it starts to affect your sleep. You know, maybe you've got a bit of that brain fog going on. It's difficult to know what to deal with first. And I think all credit to you, ladies, one of the things that I found so helpful in ways that I hadn't found it helpful previously with other providers was that actually you connected that actually, hang on a minute, your histamine and your estrogen are like twins. They go around together. What happens with one directly affects the other. And for honestly, it's the biggest light bulb moment for me. And then having the ability to do something about that, thinking about what I eat, taking supplements, you know, not everything revolves around traditional pharmaceuticals and HRT. There's so much we can do for ourselves by just looking after ourselves a bit better. And I know you are both passionate about this. So let's sort of tell people. So if they get their DNA report, what does it look like then? What happens then once they receive their report? Because by the way, it's super easy, isn't it, to actually engage with you as a client, and to, you know, it's all done via post, a simple swab, and then you get a consultation. There are various degrees of consultation, but you get a consultation and everything is explained to you, plus you have your report in front of you. So from your point of view, how does this benefit people? You know, once they engage with you with their report, how does this benefit them?
Well, I suppose, first of all, because it's information for life. So it's something that they can always refer back to. But the idea of taking it one step forward to allow access through the app is so that, because we would love to be in people's pockets ourselves every day and be able to, I mean, we genuinely, really, our mission in life is to help people to learn how to heal themselves and recognize, you know, things that are triggers for themselves, and understand, you know, when they might have put themselves in a situation that's going to trigger something for them, or whatever it might be. But it's not possible for us to be there holding somebody's hand all the time, which is why we wanted to develop this app, so that they can just refer back and think, as Vicky said, you know, depending on what's going on, okay, yes, that's what's happening to me right now. This is what my advice is. Let me try that. So we do always have the option that people can have consults as well. We love being able to meet the people who are taking our tests and be able to help them through. But the idea is that the app becomes that person's pill for life, essentially.
Yeah, and that's really important, isn't it? That's that connectivity that actually, because actually we're all so much busier, aren't we? We don't all have time to jump on a call with for a consultation. Actually, once we know how it works, and the app development it's fantastic, because that caters to what people need. You know, they don't need more stress in their life, do they? So when we talk about, let's pick one like sleep, for example, and we can just bounce through it. So what are the things that are presenting which tell you that someone has a problem with sleep? I know it sounds really obvious, but how might that be showing up in their genetics?
Well, first it would be self-reported, right? We put them into buckets. So through the app, you get what we call the lifestyle consult. So it will flag up if people have less than a certain number of hours consistently of sleep. Already we then start to look at specific DNA markers. So there is a sleep section where there are some obvious things. So we're looking at caffeine, so stimulants specifically, but caffeine and alcohol, massive sleep inhibitors. If it's not something as of that, then we're looking at melatonin. So melatonin works antagonistically to cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that keeps you awake during the day. It's also very linked to stress. And then melatonin is on the other side of that. As the sun goes down, when it starts to get darker, you get the signals through into your brain. It tells your body to stop making cortisol, to start making melatonin. Melatonin is what then aids really nice restful sleep. So it could be a problem with producing melatonin. It could be a problem with being receptive to melatonin. It can be a problem with blue light. So, we're all guilty in the evening of sitting with bright lights, watching screens.
Vicky's laughing.
Checking emails.
Our faces lit up with blue light.
That blue wave light is really disruptive to your circadian signals in your brain, because even though it's dark outside, your brain should be getting the signal that it's time to wind down, it's time to be peaceful, it's time to start secreting melatonin. But actually, on the other hand, it's thinking, but hang on, is it? Because it's getting daytime signals. So that's really confusing for your brain, and it can confuse how you secrete the hormones that you're supposed to secrete. So some people are more sensitive to those. Obviously, blue light in the evening is not great for anybody's very restful sleep, but there are some people who really particularly struggle with that. There can be blood sugar issues, there can be histamine issues. So people traditionally think of histamine as a more of like a hay fever type thing. Histamine actually is an excitatory neurotransmitter. So starts to kind of bother the brain, keeps you wired and awake, stops you from getting restful sleep. Those are the main things.
So blue lights, but if you blue light glasses are great if you do have to work at night, but if they are quite expensive, you can also get some free apps. Flux and Iris are quite good for your laptop, where so you set it at a certain time and then mine goes orange.
Right.
So I'm working in an orange light instead of a blue light.
Can I tell you something I discovered? Something I discovered about the whole light thing is and it's all to do with the proximity of the sun. When the sun is directly overhead, say at noon, it is in the blue light frequency. And when the sun is setting, we're getting more of the red light frequency. So if you need a night light on because you've got children, do you know if you have it in red, it doesn't keep you awake?
Yeah.
So it's little things, it's little gems like that, isn't it? That actually we should try and look at a sunset every night, or be in that proximity of getting that red light into ourselves. And they also say if you need to be up early in the morning, actually getting that blue light in could be to your advantage. If you need to be alert, getting, maybe that's the best time to look at your phone first thing in the morning.
That's how we used to. That's how we used to be all connected to nature. And now, we live in cities and we're now told that we have to do a 40-hour week, and that's 9 till 6 or 9 till 8. There's all these things that have come into society that have taken us further and further away from natural cycles, and especially the circadian rhythms and stuff.
So I know that the sun is bad for us and we need to be slathering up with sun cream. We've moved very far away from being natural. And that is, we try to give people tips to do easy, doable things that can bring them back into just a natural, synced up cycle, really.
And that's the thing.
And
sorry, Vicky, you go.
No, go on.
I was just going to say it's not a one trick to fix it all, is it? You're going to have to do different things at different times, which is where the app is going to be really helpful, isn't it? Because, as with all of these things, we go through a period of steady state and then maybe something else might happen, some big life event, our stress levels go off the charts, having children, children getting off to college and stuff like that. These things affect us at such a micro level and we're not aware of them until the symptoms start popping up.
Yeah. So we're trying to have little nudges and reminders. At the moment, we're testing it because we don't want to be too irritating. And it varies from person to person. So some people have said, "Oh, I absolutely love the nudges. I personally love them."
Yes.
Little things, just remember to be hydrated, or take your shoes off and go and ground for 10 minutes. But we've had some people come back and say, it's so irritating. So we're trying to work on a good balance where you know, we all have busy lives. So
Yeah.
it's not possible to be perfect every day. And that's not what we want people to feel stressed about trying to be perfect either. It's just about small habit changes that add up and eventually
it's taken me 5 years
better.
or probably when I started training, 2013, 8-9 years ago, but properly, I remember since turning 40, I'm 45 now, 40 to 45, huge changes. But again, not all at once. You can't do it all at once. When the saucepan goes, you then make sure you get a really healthy saucepan and not a toxic non-stick one. Like your makeup products, when they run out, you then make sure that you go and buy a better brand that's more natural, and you know, and it all takes time. And as things come out of your cupboard, you make sure that you constantly replace them with much better stuff. I mean, I astound myself sometimes when I open my cupboard. I go, really? Really? Especially when I go to other people's houses and I go, whoa, and all I see is toxins. All I see is toxins, sugar and rubbish and numbers. And I open these cupboards and I think, I lived like that. That was normal. That was what was in a supermarket, and I can see why it's in their cupboards. Whereas now our fridge is the main thing that's full with fresh fruit and veg. You know, it's such a shift, but that didn't happen overnight. That took quite a few years, and learning recipes slowly, and then having the stuff left over from a certain recipe, like your chia seeds or your flax seeds, and knowing then that you can put something together again by just adding those extra little seeds in because you've already got them in your cupboard from the recipe you tried. And it's all just
I love that. And that's sort of managing people's expectations, isn't it? Because it doesn't happen overnight. You do have to be motivated. You do have to be very engaged with it. Otherwise, you know, it's a bit like gym membership. Unless you use it, it's never value for money, you know. So the reality is, I mean, for me, like I say, I mean, there's so many things that really changed for me as a result of speaking to both of you. But, you know, I, at the beginning, like most people, put on quite a lot of weight during lockdown. I put on a stone. And so I said about doing HIIT workouts. I think I said to Kate, I was doing HIIT workouts twice a day at one stage, and the weight wasn't coming off. What a surprise. Then I got my DNA report, and Kate's laughing. But, you know, of course, my cortisol was off the charts. So my stress response, so my body's like, oh, my God, we're in fight, flight. No, you're not losing weight. We're going to store it all. And
hang on to energy, fight.
Exactly. And then I got really down about it. I was like, well, you know, and it was hard because I spent lots of time sitting on Zoom calls. You know, I was trying to be careful about what I ate, but then when I understood, hang on a minute, no, your body doesn't work like that, Amantha. Your body likes more protein, you know, a small amount of carbs, the right type of carbs. Yes, chia seeds, you know, eating all of those things, not skipping meals, actually eating regularly, normalizing my insulin. So it was a real game changer for me, which is again why I just feel like we should really be letting so many people know, if you're struggling with your sleep, you know, don't ignore the fact that you're struggling with your sleep. You know, if you've started to get some allergies, don't ignore the fact you started to get some allergies. You know, it's a very simple way to actually get the information that you need that then powers you up, empowers you to do something about it. And with the support of things like the app, when that comes, that's just going to make it even easier for you. So before we finish today, because we're gonna do some more of these, aren't we? So what can we let people know that they might be thinking, oh, I think this could relate to me? What sort of things might people be experiencing that might tell them it might be a good idea to get something like a DNA report, to be curious to investigate a little further? What do you think?
Anything, because we cover so much. Well, in the general report, because we look at stress, sleep, fitness, diet, intolerances, nutrients. So that's your basic, almost as Kate calls it, your 8 pillars of health. And we cover all of that. And then on top of that, you know, with the hormones, depending on what life stage you're in, male or female, you know, as men get older, they have a high risk of prostate cancer and things like that, you know, that all get looked at within the male hormone report. And then heart health, thyroid, as Kate mentioned. We cover so much. For me, I am so grateful for having done the tests that I've done to empower myself. and understand my body more. I just think everybody should have access to it.
So I would jump in and say it's not even if people feel that they're experiencing symptoms. I mean, I think everybody has something to an extent, even if it's just feeling kind of tired all the time or whatever it is. But actually, it's because this is your personal blueprint. It doesn't need to be that you're testing to pick up something that might be wrong. It's just about understanding yourself and where you have higher need for something. We also tell you where you might be stronger in certain areas. But if you know that information and you're armed with it before things come on, you can actually really avoid getting
going there.
Yeah, you can avoid getting there. It's the earlier you get on top of your health, the better for your long-term health.
And it's not so far to reverse. Like, you know, I work in cancer, and when you work in cancer and people have got to stage 4, you know, they're in a pickle. They're in an absolute pickle. But had that have been picked up earlier, or had we done more preventative stuff, because we'd have known there was some risk. So cancer is probably a wrong one, because we don't look at cancer within DNA. But there are some other things, you know, like, are you going to toilet every day? You know, simple things, bowel movements, things to be preventative against chronic disease in later life, you know, and bowel movements and being hydrated. And like we said earlier, some of those things are so small but so simple but so effective on changing the biochemistry of the body or how things work. Preventative health is definitely and easier to reverse. If we haven't gone that far, it's easier to reverse and create that environment to heal. When you've gone that far, it's a longer journey back.
Yeah, and it's such an old saying, but really prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I don't think there's anything I could add to that, which is that would add any value. So I'm not going to bother, other than to say we're going to do some more of these. And if people, you know, specifically want to know about certain topics, please say in the comments and let us know. But we're going to be covering women's health, men's health, thyroid problems, and a number of those issues that we talked about. So for now, I just want to say thank you so much to my wonderful guests. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Vicky. It's been absolutely brilliant. We're going to put your details in the link so people can be in touch with you and contact you that way. But is there anything else that we can say other than your DNA is your DNA, and actually you own it, you should value it, and you should look after it, and so we're going to help you do that. So thank you, ladies. I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.